Good evening viewers and welcome to the Art with World. Today we are going to discuss situation of literary arts in Pakistan and role of Academy of Letters in promoting arts and culture in Pakistan. And our guest today is Sultan Nasir Sahab. Sultan Nasir Sahab is an accomplished author, a very good poet, cultural historian and a very good critic. Welcome to our show, Sultan Sahab.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for having me with you.
Yeah, thank you for sparing time for us.
It is great pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things we have to discuss today. I mean, because you are Director General of Academy of Letters, Islamabad, and you have to play a lot of, you have to play your role in promoting whatever is happening in Pakistan, in literature particularly. But before that, I would like to hear from you and for our viewers, what's your literary journey? How did you come into this literature and arts? I guess you were a civil servant, but you joined
I'm
this
a civil servant and a tax collector, basically a taxman. So I think I consider poetry my basic identity when it comes to my being and when it comes to defining my being. But you know, to live in the society and to earn your bread and butter, you have to do something that, you know, makes your kitchen run properly. So I entered, after doing my masters, I entered in civil services, and I was allocated to Federal Board of Revenue, and I served as a tax officer for all the years that I have been in the service. And then I landed into Pakistan Academy of Letters, where I'm serving right now. I came here on deputation, so my parent department.
It was your choice to come.
Of course. I mean, it was an offer by the chairperson of Pakistan Academy of Letters, and I was on Humphrey Fellowship last year in the United States in the Syracuse University. So when I returned from Humphrey Fellowship, I joined FBR headquarters. And after a month of my joining, I received a telephone call from the chairperson, and she said that, you know, in the Pakistan Academy of Letters, they need an officer who has an experience of administration and is a civil servant, but who also has understanding of literature and creative art and all that. So I received an offer, and I mean that was something I never expected. I mean, when I joined service, I knew that I'm going to be a civil servant, and when I was allocated to Inland Revenue Service, I knew that I'm going to spend my entire career as a taxman, and I never expected that one day I'll be landing in Pakistan Academy of Letters.
So how is this experience now?
It's a wonderful experience. I mean, it's very challenging. It needs a lot of dedication and commitment due to the fact that, unfortunately and very unfortunately, culture and art and literature are not considered the priority areas in our society the way they should be, and the way they are considered priority areas in the developed world. So, I mean, since it is not a priority area, normally it is not a priority area as such, therefore the department feels, you know, some at times shortage of human resource and shortage of logistics, and with that very limited human resource and logistics, you have to meet your targets and you have to do whatever vision you have to promote art and literature in the country and for the preservation of the languages and the linguistic diversity that you have. It's challenging, but it's really enjoyable. I mean, when you like something, when you have a passion and that passion becomes your profession, so nothing like that.
So you're the lucky one.
Yeah, I mean, if even in that situation, if you are in the office till say 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and that is your passion too, so you never think that you are on job. You're not in office. You're doing what your heart tells you to do. So you feel okay. Yeah.
Well, I come back to this Pakistan Academy of Letters later. Sort of a lot of things what you are doing and what initiatives you have taken. But before that, I just want to come to your own poetry, especially as you said that you want to identify yourself as a poet.
Yeah.
So how did your interest in poetry develop, and what were your influences? I mean, if you could tell us a little more about that.
I think it was, I don't know if it is genetic or not, but since I come from the family of the Sufi poet Sultan Bahu, So probably there was something in the genes also. And my maternal grandfather, named Sultan Ghulam Dastagir, he was a wonderful poet of Persian and Urdu languages. Then my uncle Sultan ARSHAD, my father, my grandfather, they were all lovers of poetry, and especially my mother, she loved the poetry of Mian Muhammad Bakhsh. And when we were very, I mean, as an infant even, I mean, the most intimate memories of my infancy, if I have any, they were the lullabies of Mian Muhammad Bakhsh coming to my ears from my mother. So she had almost memorized the entire book called Safarul Ishq, the Saif al-Muluk and Badiul, the famous legend of Saif al-Muluk and Badiul Jamal. So it was probably, they were the fundamental influencers. And then of course the poetry of Sultan Bahu was recited in our family. So, and then I studied Sadi and Hafiz and Rumi from my father. He taught me Gulistan Bustan when I was in grade 6 or 7. There was a tradition in our family. And no, I mean, unfortunately the tradition is not there as such. But there was a time when the parents used to, you know, teach the Persian classics to their children. So I was lucky to be taught the Persian classics from my father. And then I developed an interest in, especially in Sadi, but also gradually in Hafiz and Rumi and then Khayyam and people like them. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how the story goes.
And you had major influences of Punjabi poetry, I guess.
Yeah, Punjabi and Persian
Sultan
probably.
Bahu.
Yeah, absolutely.
So didn't you try writing in Punjabi language, or you just?
As a matter of fact, I didn't.
Okay.
Or probably I could not. And gradually, when I grew up as a boy, I had influences of poets like Iqbal and Faiz and Rashid especially. And I think the best thing that happened to me was that in my life I got some people who connected me with the classics.
Okay.
So I think that's where I get my strength from, the connections with the classics. So I mean, started from especially Ghalib and then studying Iqbal, and so it was in a way, as they say in the bureaucracy, that doing it through proper channel. So I started from classics, and that helped me a lot. I believe that, yeah, if classics are in the foundation, then the building can really go high.
Okay. Yeah. All these poets you have just mentioned, like Ghalib, Iqbal, Faiz and Rashid, they are heavily influenced by Persian poetry.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that means you opted for Persian influence in trying your writing your poetry.
Yeah, because as I already mentioned, I had Persian influence direct also. I mean, not through Ghalib and Iqbal or Rashid and all these people, but since, you know, I studied when I was very young, I was in grade 6 or 7 when my father taught me Sadi and Rumi. So yeah, I had that influence in my mind, yeah. And of something from the Arabic poetry. So this Oriental poetic tradition, whether it was in Persian or Arabic or Urdu or Punjabi, Saraiki, all these influences, probably they played their role.
But strangely, I have read your poetry book, Kahin Nahi. It's not that much Persianized. It has a very much local influence. Its language is very local. It's very simple. It's not Persianized.
It was published in 2020. I started writing poetry in, I mean, the first mushaira that I attended. My very dear uncle and my mentor, Sultan ARSHAD, took me along to a mushaira. That was in 1998. So I started from ghazal, and some of my poems like Girah Na Kholo and Alif Mim and poems like those, they have some different influences. But probably I tried to move forward. I tried to make it sure that the classics remain as a foundation. And then probably there was a conscious effort also of growing up and of giving my own contribution. So if and many things that I wrote, you know, in the 1990s and afterwards, in the early 2000, like 2003, 4, 5, they could not get their place in the Kahin Nahi. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a selection.
Okay.
I think one of my books should have been published quite early, and that book could have been much different. Yeah.
But I guess this, I mean, this is your book,
Yeah.
Kahin Nahi,
Yeah.
as viewers could see. It doesn't have ghazals, it only has
Yeah,
poems, I
it
guess.
has only nazms.
So you think poem is your better expression,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
prefer
yeah.
writing poems?
I started from ghazal,
Uh-huh.
and I wrote a lot of ghazals. I took part in many ghazal competitions during my student life. I wrote a lot of ghazals on Tara Misra. And then gradually a time came when I understood that whatever effort I was doing with my creative being, that was probably a little more mechanical than creative. And then a realization came to me that I need to move to a genre that is more a representative of my creativity than of my, if it is a practice of craft, more than craft, it should be a genuine depiction of my creativity and my inner being. And then in Nazm, especially in Azad Nazm, that is the free poem, if we can translate it in that way, that gave me an opportunity to express my real being. And then I realized that whatever I am writing in Nazm, that is a true reflection of what I am, and it gives me more space to express myself. But of course I loved ghazal, and I still love ghazal, but I don't write it that much. But I wish that one day I can compile all my ghazals of all those years, and I can compile them. But yeah, I did not include my ghazals in this book.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
You wrote in your book that writing poems help you liberate yourself.
Yeah.
Would you explain it further a little bit? What's
Well,
that experience
we
which
have-
liberates?
Yeah. I think these are very delicate things to talk about. I mean, we are in many chains. They are social, they are psychological, they are dogmatic, they are genetic, they are ethnic, they are linguistic. So for me, the purpose of art is to liberate yourself, from as many chains as is possible, because it's not possible to liberate ourselves from all the chains. But poetry, and especially Azad Nazm, it gives me a space where I can like breathe in the fresh air, and I can say without saying. I can say whatever is inside me, and I know that if I say it all, it may not be socially acceptable, and there might be repercussions, and I may face the music. But this is fiction. You're yourself a wonderful novelist, and you know it, that this is fiction and poetry that gives you space to say without saying. I mean, you put the things between the line, and the reader gets the message. And if somebody says that you said this wrong, if some social forces, the authority, comes and tells you that you said this thing wrong, and you say, no, I never said that. So you say without saying. And my narrative about poetry and fiction is that about liberating, especially, that they are different from journalism and history in a way that a journalist and a historian is answerable to the society in a particular way and may face the consequences, because he has to tell the thing in black and white. But poetry and fiction gives you some gray areas where you can play the way you want to play. It's up to your imagination and up to your creative being that play on and say it all.
But
Isn't it like that?
Society doesn't spare you even then. Most of the writers, painters, artists, they have suffered because whatever they had written. Because when you are in front of a more powerful structure, they explain in their own way and they decide in their own way.
Yeah, that's correct.
So most of writers, poets, they have suffered a lot.
Yeah.
Even then, they had not written directly. They had kept something secret, but those who wanted to judge them, they did.
They did.
So there is no escape.
Yeah. I mean, it is said about Hussain bin Mansur Hallaj, the one who said Anal Haq. And some of the Sufis said that He said in prose what he should have said in poetry. Had he said it in poetry, and many people did that, he would not have been crucified the way he was.
Okay.
So I think, I mean, there is an area which some smart, creative people consider as their space in creative arts, that you can say it and still it will be very difficult for the people to judge you. So that is your mastery as a fiction writer, as a poet, or as a person who is indulged in creative arts, that you send your message to the world, and you are smart enough to make sure that you are not being judged, or you don't face the consequences. And well, even if you face the consequences, then what? A time should come when somebody who is speaking the truth, and he is smart enough to take care of all those delicacies and aesthetics of poetry and of fiction and all that, and even if he or she has to face the consequences, then what? Yeah, a time comes. But normally we should try to not distort the situation, but create our space in that social milieu and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So you write mostly in free verse.
In free verse.
There's a lot of controversy around that. That should free verse be considered as genuine representation of poems? I mean, I am for it,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to.
I think it is for prose poetry and not for free verse.
Okay.
Because free verse has meter. Something that I write, Azad Nazm, it has its meter. Although it does not have that rhyming schemes that a ghazal has, like Kafiya and Radif and all that, but it has its meter.
Okay.
And the prose poem, yes, the prose poem does not have meter. My take on it is, well, I believe that poetry ends where there is no music. I mean, so some kind of musicality, some kind of musicality has to be in poetry. So this is something very personal. No offense intended.
No, I also agree with you.
Yeah, it's very personal. I mean, yeah, people write in many ways, and they call it poetry, and yeah, they have every right to call it so. But this is a very personal thing. My personal take is that poetry should have a connection with music or musicality. So that can be in the shape of meter. Like in English, we have that the stressed and unstressed syllables, the rule with the rules of prosody. In Hindi tradition, we have those matras. In Urdu, we have the harakat and sukoon in the ilmul uruz. So whatever way it is, even if it is in stressed and unstressed syllables, as it is in English, or it is the matras, the Hindi matras, or the harakat and sukoon of ilmul uruz, or whatever, but it should have an element of musicality. If it then it qualifies as poetry to me. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So what do you think are functions of poetry? It's very old art. People have been writing poetry since ages. So what in your opinion is?
Well, this is like asking a flower what is the function of emitting fragrance. I mean, I think
I agree with you, but I just wanted to hear from you.
This is a beautiful and of course a very delicate question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I write because I must. I don't have an option.
Yeah.
Because I must. I know, you write because you must. Well, functions, I think it
Sorry,
has to...
I ask you this question just because people have different opinions. Some people say that this poetry doesn't have message. Some people think that artists or poets should have a social responsibility. Some people think that poets should write resistance poetry, revolutionary poetry. Some people think that it should be just aesthetics. What is close to my heart is someone said that it's not function of poetry to expose great ideas, but just to give you a moment of existence and with unbearable nostalgia. So all people have different ideas about poetry. So I just asked this question.
I think probably it is about all of the things that you mentioned, or maybe it is about nothing that you mentioned, because it depends. It depends upon the poets or the artists' philosophy of art, or how does he look at it? Like catharsis is something that almost everybody accept as one important inspiration for most of the poets and for most
You
of
would
the
say
artists.
catharsis or expression? A desire to express?
Well, desire to express, also catharsis in the sense that for a creative person, at times it is not possible to shed the feelings with the people about whom he thinks that probably they won't be able to understand me, like the people who are very close to him or her and very near and dear to him or her. But with poetry, probably they feel that they have shed their feelings and they have said something which otherwise probably the people could not have understood. As far as social responsibility is concerned, I think poetry should not work like a preacher.
Yeah.
An artist is not a preacher necessarily, but an artist has a narrative. An artist has a world view. So it is like showing the people the world through my eyes. So as Iqbal says that shaire rangi nawa hai, didae binae qaum, that a poet is the...
He was a preacher, by the way.
He was, well, but the thing with Iqbal is very different, that despite being a very strong philosopher, his heart is amazingly high and he fulfills all the requirements of genuine artist. Now look at his big poems like Masjid-e-Qurtba, even his poems of early times like Walda Marhuma Ki Yaad Mein and Khizr-e-Ra and all those amazing. Well, I think the difference between a preacher and a genuine artist is that for a preacher, the things come to his head and he, with his pen or with his tongue, preaches whatever comes to his head. It does not become a part of his entire being. As far as the case of an artist is concerned, whether poet or fiction writer, I mean, if the idea is entirely a part of his being, and then after making a part of his being and to what we call in Punjabi the had beati, right? So if it is a part of his being and then it is turned into poetry, then it gets the caliber of Iqbal, somebody who, despite being a philosopher, like I am myself, I would never probably write the type of poetry Iqbal did, but I cannot deny his poetic excellence. I mean, Meri nawae shauq se, shor harim e zaat mein, gulgula hai al-ama, बुत कदाए सिफात में, तूने ये क्या गज़ब किया, मुझको भी फाश कर दिया, मैं ही तो एक राज था सीना-ए कायनात में. Now look at the grandeur of his art. It is terrifying. Yeah.
Coming back to, I mean, which poets you like most? I mean, in Urdu poetry or any poetry in any other language?
Well, I think Faiz and Rashid both, and of course Iqbal also. And in present times, you know, there are Mubarak Shah is one of my favorite poets. I have worked on him, and there are many wonderful people now writing in Pakistan. Yeah.
And about Punjabi poetry?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a very good student of contemporary Punjabi poetry.
Okay.
So I was connected, and same goes for my Persian, that I unfortunately could not be a good student of the contemporary Persian poetry. With both of these languages, I was connected with the classics.
Okay.
So I studied Hafiz and Rumi and Sadi and all those people, but not the contemporary Persians. Same went with Punjabis that I studied, you know, I remained connected with Bhulle Shah and Sultan Bahu and Shah Hussain and even Khaja Ghulam Farid Sahab and Mian Muhammad Bakhsh. But I'm not very much into, I mean, I have studied Sharif Kunjahi and Munir Niazi and Ahmad Rahi and some of
Najm Hussain Sahab.
Of course, Najm Hussain Sahab. But he's difficult. I respect him a lot. I love some of his poems like Made Mitar Samandar Sunwo. And especially I like the expression and that is about identity when he says that Gaye Lal Kamayan Karne, Re Dadeyan da Pani Parne. So
You can explain it in English as well, because
yeah,
for our
de
viewers-
lal kamaiyan karne. It is like our children went to earn bread and
Right.
butter for us, and dadiyan the pani bharne. Now dadiyan are
More
the
powerful.
haves, the powerful people. So our kids went and they kept filling water and fetching water for the powerful people.
Mhm.
And you know, so means they didn't have anything to do for themselves, only to earn their bread and butter. They kept, you know, feeding the powerful, and they kept feeding and feeding and feeding them. So yeah, so for me it is an issue of identity. Yeah, and there are many other beautiful poems that he has written.
he's my
Najm
favorite
Hussain
as well.
Sayyid Sahib is amazing. Yeah, he is a living legend.
Yeah.
What a man! What a man!
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
And coming back to another area of your interest, you have been writing on mysticism as well.
Yeah.
How do we explain that? Like, let me just explain my question. Mysticism is something people read, people experience, people practice. But these days it has been referred to as something which is kind of solution to all our problems. It has becoming like a political jargon. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, for me it is something to do with soul, with spirit,
Okay.
and not with rituals. But unfortunately today many of the people who claim to be connected with Sufism or mysticism, they are more concerned with the rituals.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not about rituals. It is about purifying yourself. It's about purifying your inner being. It's about making a strong connection with your Creator, especially after purifying yourself. So the politics, and especially the financial game which is going on the name of mysticism and Sufism, especially in Pakistan and India, I consider it terrible. I mean, I am not a part of that. I come from a family where it was very common, and I unfortunately I know some of the things because I have been very intimate to all those things, and I know that the way the people are misusing mysticism and Sufism only by limiting it to certain rituals and to all these dam taweez and the type of shape the Khankahi system has got in the present days. I do not believe this is what the actual Sufism is. I am a believer in the Sufism, but in the Sufism which is directly derived from, and there are many things that we get from Quran about Sufism and about all those great peoples that we have heard about. It is not about making these all bungalows and all the financial hub that the Sufi shrines have become. It has nothing to do with it. This is a drama that I don't believe in. Yeah.
Well, let's come to another very different topic. You have written your dissertation on Joseph Conrad. He's my favorite novelist. I love his writing. Later, I recently, not very recently, but in the last few decades, there is a lot of controversy around his novel Heart of Darkness as well, whether it glorifies colonial values or destroys them. So, in your dissertation, what argument you had or what point you wanted to prove in your dissertation?
Well, that dissertation I wrote when I was doing my master's back in 2001 to 2003, and my supervisor was Dr. Riaz Hassan Saab, a wonderful scholar, a stylist, and himself a novelist. My take at that time was that it's not only about a European who goes to for the hunt of ivory or for that colonial goals and all that, but it has its psychological dimensions. So I focused on psychological dimensions of the novel, and therefore the topic of my novel was psychological study of Conrad's Marlowe, and my focus was on this character Marlowe, which appears, as you already mentioned, Lord Jim, and in Youth, and in Shadowline, and in other novels of Joseph Conrad. So I was concerned with the character of Marlowe. As far as that, the question that you just talked about, the controversy. Well, the controversy probably got its shape after that post-colonial narrative came to the limelight, after the works of Edward Said and those great people. I'm a great fan of Edward Said. Edward Said has also worked on Joseph Conrad. So
He was his favorite.
I mean, Edward Said's
I've
PhD
listened-
dissertation was autobiographical elements in Joseph Conrad, something like that.
Okay.
And that book was published also. It was written in 1964, 65, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So the discussions came to light with Chinua Achebe's work.
Yeah.
When he called Joseph Conrad a thoroughgoing racist.
Yeah.
And then there was another interesting thing that I got. It was Barack Obama's book. In one of his books, which was published when he was not yet the President of the United States of America. And he writes that he had one of the books of Joseph Conrad, and one of his fellows said that he is a racist. So why are you studying Joseph Conrad to know about Africa or what happened with Africa? And he said, Obama wrote that no, this book does not work for me in telling me something about the Africans. Rather, it tells me about the white people, and about those people who were judging the Africans with special lenses. Yeah. So that was an interesting reference that I get lately. I consider it. I do not think he was a racist as such. Well, it will be very difficult to disagree with a man like Chinua Achebe. But let me be honest. I was not really impressed by what Chinua Achebe said.
Yeah, me too.
I was not impressed by him because he says that he has dehumanized the black, because he says that there were many black people and blacks there and blacks here. And similarly, he has talked about the whites. So Conrad also says that there were many white people. So it does not mean he's dehumanizing them. And of course, when there were the post-colonial narrative was not there as such. So we cannot judge Joseph Conrad keeping in view the works done by Edward Said or by Spivak or other post-colonialists or Nomi K. Bhabha, who have worked on post-colonialism later on, because now these areas of these disciplines were not introduced till that time. So how can we expect Joseph Conrad of doing all that? And himself, he was from Poland, and I mean his global outlook I really like, which is quite missing in the works of many of his contemporaries.
Yes.
Because himself, he was a man. He was a practical man. He was not a merely fiction writer in the way that he was not an armchair fiction writer. He went to the seas.
He was a sailor.
Yeah, he was a sailor basically. His life is very strange.
Yeah. Full of adventures.
Full of adventures, and same are his works. And look at his mastery in English language. That was also an adventure. He could not speak
But
English
Edward
very well.
Said, I was listening to Edward Said's interview. He says that his writing had to go through a hell of editing.
Joseph Conrad's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Everyone, even the greatest authors,
Yeah.
they go through editing. I mean,
They do. And some of, especially in the case of Urdu and Persian, we have manuscripts of some of the writers who, like some very abrupt type of couplets, who seem to be to what we call in Persian az dil khizad o bar dil rizad, which means that coming out of heart and touching the other person's heart directly. I mean, they're that simple and straightforward. But when we see the manuscripts, then we find a lot of editing. It seems very simple to write dil-e nadan tujhe hua kya hai, aakhir is dard ki dawa kya hai. But you never know what the poet did with these simple, beautiful words which rise from the heart and which touch the other person's heart.
Well, let's come back to this Joseph Conrad. I mean, something related to him, not related to him, but that's important. This is post-colonial debate. I see that most of our universities, particularly English language departments, most of their PhDs are on some kind of post-colonial literature. Do you think it's still that much relevant as it was like 50 years before or 60 years before? World has changed, people have changed,
Correct.
a lot of new things have happened. So what do you think? I mean, most of our writers are people, I would say, they put responsibility if all bad things happen to them to colonialism. So that was 60 years back, 70 years back. Now things have changed. They have been liberated. They should have moved forward. Many a nation have moved forward.
Correct.
They have risen to the heights of their development and everything. So what's your opinion?
Yeah, I agree with what you are saying, and absolutely we should move forward, and we should consider it one part of our history, not the totality of our history, but one part of our history. And if there was something good in it, we should take advantage of it. And if there was something bad in it, we should discard it, and we should move forward. And now, instead of post-colonialism, I have not studied it, but I have heard this term from some of the scholars of English literature and criticism, literary criticism, and that is decolonialism. I really love the term. And I asked one of the critics that what does it mean, and she explained to me that by decolonialism we mean that making the colonial debate not that much relevant, and discarding it and to move forward. So that really made sense to me. So instead of post-colonialism, probably this is high time that we try to move forward, and we try to try to consider it as one part of our history. And I mean, if some things, the colonial things in our languages or literature, they have entered in our literature and they have become a part of our lives, and if they are beautiful and good, then why not to take advantage of it? So
it reminds me of a dialogue in a film. I don't remember exactly what this film was, but a 40-year guy who always says to his friends, to his girlfriend, that this problem in me is because in my childhood something happened to me, and all that Freudian theories and all that. So now everyone says that since there were 100 years back some colonizers, so everything bad is happening to us is because of that. Well, let's come to your new job at Academy of Letters. Now you are Director General. What role, let's just enlighten our viewers, what role Academy of Letters is playing in promoting literature in Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, Pakistan Academy of Letters is the prime organization under the Ministry of Culture that plays its role to promote Pakistani literature and also Pakistani languages. And by Pakistani literature, we do not mean the literature written only in Urdu, but the literature written in all Pakistani languages. So we do not call them regional languages anymore, rather we call them Pakistani languages. So Academy of Letters is doing many activities like conducting events, book launches, seminar, literary conferences, workshops, and issuing awards to people like on the books, and the Lifetime Achievement Award. The biggest award that we have is called the Kamal-e-Fan Award. And we publish books there, so we have publication of books, and also we have publication of periodicals, and we try to make it sure that there is representation from all areas of Pakistan, from as many linguistic backgrounds.
That's true. That's fantastic. But let me just ask you one question.
Sure.
You told me that like poetry is kind of liberating. It has helped you liberate yourself and expression, give expression. And you also wrote that it also helped you in discoveries, maybe discovering your own self. So Academy of Letters is a great institution, as you just said, they are doing great job. But being a bureaucratic structure and being part of the government, how much space is available to the writers? I mean, the work of the writers Academy publishes to say things freely, have disagreement, dissent, say things. I mean, what kind of censorship you have, and do you allow people whose works you published, if that is not in line with the current policies, do you still publish them?
I think we do, and we have been publishing. But
Okay.
yeah, there are some areas like the ideology of Pakistan. Yeah, of course we have to take care of that. Because after all, it is a state institution, and it has to take care of the sensitivities of the state. And probably it is the responsibility of this institution also. But we have tried to create some spaces. Of course, it may not be appropriate for us to publish books on topics which are totally against the policy of the state or
Or the current government.
Well, I would say for
Then-
us, for the organizations, for the institutions, the state is what is more important.
Okay.
Of course, the current government and the government policies also play their roles, but after all, the real importance lies with the state.
Okay.
And yeah, with that of identifying ourselves with that state, that is the real thing that we take care of. But you know, taking care of all those things, we have tried to create some spaces where the people can sit together and they can speak freely. You might be aware that we have a beautiful weekly session, informal session, and it is called Chai, Baatein aur Kitabein. And it is held on every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And the concept is, its structure is that it has almost no structure. You simply go and sit there, and believe me, sir, in that session of ours, that is Chai, Baatein and Kitabein, which is happening every Wednesday, we have some of the extreme leftists and the extreme rightists sitting together and discussing things.
Great.
For me, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And I thought that, yeah, the purpose has been fulfilled, that they are at least listening to each other. The problem is that we do not interact, or we are not allowed to interact probably, or we don't have enough spaces to try to know that what the feelings of the other person are. So we are trying to create some spaces. So whatever bureaucratic legacy or whatever XYZ legacy that we have with us, we cannot dismantle it in one day. But we have at least, I think, we are trying to, you know, make a step in the right direction. And especially this program, weekly session of ours, is really going very successful.
Great.
Yeah. I wish that someday you also visit it.
Please do let me know. I would love to
It is
come.
every Wednesday. It is at 4 p.m. every Wednesday. So just people sit there. We offer them only one cup of tea. And there are many men and women from, and there are some students from different, and there are some poets and fiction writers, and some painters, at times some singers. So they can speak on anything, and we, at times, if there is nothing as such important with them, so we all, you know, we give them a topic to talk about, and then all of them give their opinion and share their views, and it's beautiful.
Great.
Yeah.
And good luck for this initiative.
Thank you.
And thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
being with us
Thank
this
you.
afternoon.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So viewers, thank you for watching us. See you next Sunday, same time.